So every day of the week we hear from the Irish media and from our own politicians that if you don't like direct vision pretty much and iPass setters in your local area, you're far right extremists. If you disagree with anything the government says, you're an extremist. If you don't toe the lie of the state, you're extremist, you're far right, you're this and you're that and you're the other. And again, all this, you people like what is far right, etc., what is far left too, I suppose, too. Because as I always said from the beginning, as the woman even behind me has said many, many times, we should focus on the issues and not literally focus on the individual. I think we're too busy focusing on the individual in society. We're not focusing on the issues. We're focusing on just name calling people and stuff like that. And it's all about division, of course. It's divide and conquer pretty much. That's the government's tactics and the NGOs and the state, the media. It's all about divide and conquer pretty much. But a lot of people are getting sick of just listening to, it's all far right extreme, but it don't explain, how is this far right, etc., and how is this extremist. But not even that, it's all meaningless, because the more times you use the phrase, because the media, when they started force using the far right terms, extremist, etc., people maybe listen to like the only Joe listened, the only Paddy, the only Mary listened. But nowadays they're like, I've heard it all before. Like that's the attitude a lot of people have now, and I know people that are not really glued into what's happening over here, but the far right are rising up and stuff like that. But it's all meaningless to them now because they've heard it over a billion times over the last few years. You can only hear so much before you get tired of it and say fuck it all. Who cares? And I wouldn't blame half of the people because let's be fair, hearing it all the time 24/7, you would lose the plot. But what I'm trying to say, we should focus on what the person's saying. It's in terms of iPass setters in their areas. We should listen to people that are raising concerns and genuine concerns. And again, these people being pushed into communities and stuff, and the Gaudi are facilitating it and stuff like that. But again, we should focus on what the person's saying and not about about are they far right, are they extremist, are they this and are they that and are they here and what we should focus on what they're saying. Again, that's the problem in politics, in modern politics. We're too busy focusing on the individual. Are they interesting? Are they something? Are they this and are they that? We're not, and again, the media are the perfect example in this country. The two votes, this anti-immigration candidate, or this, that, and the other anti-person, this anti-person, and that other anti-person. And they're not saying, this person doesn't agree with this the government's doing, and this is the reason why, and stuff. They're too busy like, oh yeah, this anti-this, and anti-that, and anti-this. It's all, again, as I say, it's all about divide and conquer. It's all about, pretty much dividing people. Because it's easier to control people when you divide people, when you unite people. It's very hard to control people, and again, that's the idea of the state and the media. As we see, the media don't question the government. Like the media should be, like the Irish government should have collapsed 5 minutes. Like literally, it was 5 minutes as soon as it took the job. If the media done its job, if OT, because again, OT are funded by the government, why would they bite the hand that feeds them and literally bail them out? So why would OT question what the government are doing and ask very, very tough questions? Because let's be fair, where should I start? Where should I start? The amount of people homeless, the amount of young people leaving this country, young Irish people leaving, never to return in a lot of cases. Like, any government should have collapsed and fell within 5 minutes of these things. Not to mention many other stuff. We could sit here all day and mention it. But again, it's a miracle how the government hasn't collapsed yet. It should have collapsed 5 minutes into it, into its term. If we had a real media, if we had a media that literally banged down the doors of the government, and annoyed the hell of them. But again, the media is pretty much controlled by the state. It quite literally is. There's literally money being given. Take for example, my local radio station, Golden Sound, is given thousands and thousands of euro by commission them on. Pretty much the media, the big daddy of media, pretty much the big brother, if you may use that word too. But they're getting thousands of euro from it. The same with the Irish state is given thousands. So why would you bite the hand that feeds you? Let's put that way. But again, we have to stop using this meaningless phrases, and that's the way I would describe it, because we should focus on what the person's saying. And again, everybody's entitled to their opinion. If you disagree with me, if you disagree, you disagree with me. There's no way of changing anybody's opinion. But as I say, it's all about having the discussion. Instead of just saying straight away, and you don't really hear me ever say about far right or far left even. A lot of people would say, oh, you're only far left, etc., etc., wouldn't listen to the argument. But I do listen to people, even people that are extreme left, etc., extreme right, or whatever the situation, regardless of who it is, pretty much. I always hear what they say. I never really I always address what they say. It's not who they are and stuff like that. In the majority of cases, some rare cases, in some cases where homophobia is involved or other people involved. But I never really, I always address what they say, because that's the whole idea of what the person's saying. It's not who they are or who they're associated, it's what they say. As I would say, judge the person what they say, not how they look, I suppose, in the way too. But what are the interesting though like this? We could sit here and argue all day about it, I suppose. But it is all meaningless. Like, I think anybody can agree that it's literally all meaningless, because you can only call people so much far left and far right and extremist and this and that, before it literally loses its meaning. Because the whole meaning of far left and far right is to shock people and frighten people, terrify people, I suppose, too, in a way. But it's all meaningless in the modern society because it's used so much by the media, particularly, and obviously our politicians too. But media and politicians pretty much run the same, as I say. But it's the media particularly, because again, these words and extremists and stuff, it's supposed to be used in the most extreme circumstances. See what I done there? But you get them, it's in the most extreme circumstances, once in maybe 5 times in a year, like in our lifetime. But nowadays it's quite literally thrown out every 5 minutes of the day. But anyway, that's just my opinion. As I say, if you disagree with me, disagree with me. That's democracy. That's freedom. And again, I always want people to disagree with me too, because that's democracy. I want people, because there's often been times, just on a random note, I suppose, here too. There's oftentimes I've said stuff on different things that I didn't know about and stuff, on different points of view, take this up, of different subjects. And it's interesting to see, because again, sometimes you don't see all the views of what you're talking about. And it's important for somebody to get their voice out there. Regardless if I disagree with it or not, I want to kind of see what a person thinks. And what's their argument behind it, etc., etc. Because it's interesting to see, because again, you can't always be one focused now to like going in that direction. You kind of have to be open too, to look and what other people are taking to, because you can't just be in your own head, looking forward, if that makes any sense. You have to kind of look around you and look at what other people are saying to you. You can't just be in your own head and ignoring people, because that's pretty much what the government are doing here, in their own head. Willingly, let's put it that way. They're not doing it by sheer ignorance, they are doing it by sheer ignorance too, but of course not idiocy, as we would call it, being idiots and stupid. They're not doing it in that regard, just looking straight. They just refuse to listen. That's a different case. But you're always important to look both sides too and listen, and of course have your view too, but of course listen to other people too, because you have to listen to other people, and I suppose take their arguments into account, even though they're most insane. Like some things I've seen, just last point to make, and there's some things I've seen on Twitter and stuff that are absolutely insane in terms of some people what they suggest and stuff like that, and some people just throw out random things literally with nothing to back it up. But at the same time too, I look at it and say, how did they come to this conclusion? How did they do this? And at the same time, they believe it. There's nothing really you can do to stop it or to disagree with them. If they generally believe it, then they generally believe it. There's nothing really you can do. But that's democracy, as I say. That's the beauty of freedom too, because nobody can be told. Everybody can't be told what to think. It's not communism. People can think freely and independently, and that's what we want in the modern society, in a free society, in the sovereign society. We want people to think for themselves and not be told what to think and how to think, because that's only dictatorship. Anyway, let me know what you think. Subscribe for more and bye.